So everybody literally knows about this war unless you've been living under a rock. But how Ukraine has ended up getting the upper hand against Russia. Let's have a look at it.
On September 6th, the Ukrainian army launched an attack on the town of Balaklia. It had been held by the Russian army for more than 6 months. But by September 8th, the Ukrainian army had recaptured it.
Has it been that long already?
Started.
Holy fuck.
Over the next few days, Ukrainian forces swept through this Russian-held territory with astounding speed.
Ukrainian forces have blitzed through Russia's gains
in a lightning counteroffensive,
forcing Russian forces to retreat.
As of September 14th, Ukraine claims it recaptured nearly 8,000 square kilometers of Russian-held territory and liberated dozens of towns.
So this is Russian territory in Ukraine.
It's a major breakthrough for Ukraine, and
obviously,
it marks a new
Ukraine
phase
haven't
in the
gone into
war.
Russia yet. I don't think.
How did Ukraine pull off such a stunning attack, and how does it change the war?
It's actually mad that they're at war, isn't it, bro?
It's useful to think of the war in Ukraine as having three main phases so far. The first began when Russia invaded in February 2022. The Russian military swept into Ukraine through the north, east, and south, and immediately clashed with the Ukrainian army.
This phase was essentially the Russians attempting to force the Ukrainian government to surrender.
This is Mason Clark, a Russia analyst.
Bro, it was actually mad. Like, the first fucking few days that this happened, bro, holy shit. Like, media, the news, everything, like, everyone was going crazy. But good shit for Ukraine for, like, you know, just staying strong and stuff. And now it's like, it seems like the tide is turning, which is
the Institute for the Study of War,
really good for
an
Ukraine.
American think tank.
Ukrainian forces at the time were in large part outgunned.
The most intense fighting took place in a few major cities like Kharkiv, Mariupol, Kherson, and outside the capital, Kyiv. But by April, a few weeks into the war, Russia had failed to capture Kyiv or Kharkiv. It did control a large swath of territory, though, and continued to fight the Ukrainian army on three main fronts: in the northeast, in the east, and in the south, where it did control Kherson. That's when the second phase began. From about April to August, this map changed very little. Russia, for the most part, stopped conducting large, sweeping attacks, and instead relied on its artillery to pound Ukrainian positions. But the Russian army was in bad shape. The U.S. government estimates that as many as 80,000 Russian soldiers have been killed.
Holy shit!
It was very, very devastating for them, particularly since the losses they were taking early in the war were in the best of the Russian military. The easy comparison is by this summer, the Russians had lost more men than the Soviets did in nearly a decade of the war in Afghanistan.
Wow. Bro, the thing is as well, like, I'm pretty sure I've seen like media clips, and I don't know, the media can lie. So I could be so wrong in this, and if I am, just let me know in the comments. But I'm pretty sure I've seen clips of like the Russians was like leaving their tanks and stuff, and they had no idea what the fuck they was even fighting for. Like, they didn't even know why they was going to war and stuff. That, like, there was lied to it, etc.
So during the summer,
but
Russia
I could
used
be
the time
wrong with
to
that.
recruit more soldiers, but it didn't go well.
A fascinating element of this is that the Kremlin still is calling this a special military operation. It cannot be referred to as a war. That actually matters because the Russians haven't called up conscripts for this invasion, and instead they're trying to fill these gaps with these various ad hoc methods.
The Russians have had to hire more mercenaries and offer payments to prisoners. They've even raised the age limit to allow men over 40 to join the army. And Russia sent many of these men with little training to the front lines.
So it's led to a steady drop-off in the quality of Russian personnel throughout the war.
But while Russia struggled to rebuild its army, Ukraine had the opposite problem.
There was actually a sort of a bottleneck in May where they had too many recruits and not enough instructors to train them, which is a very good problem.
Wow.
With the help from its Western allies, Ukraine was able to quickly train lots of these men before sending them to the front.
Hell yeah.
The Ukrainian military not just produce more soldiers, but very effective soldiers, better than the Russians.
By the end of August,
holy
they were
shit,
ready for the next phase of the war, their own attack. Throughout the summer, Ukrainian leaders talked a lot about their plans to launch an attack.
Bro, that's so cool, man, how, like, fucking just everyone came together, and, you know, well, not everyone came together, but you know what I mean, like, everyone in Ukraine, they stood together, they stayed strong, people was going there to support it, help it, and now look, bro, now look.
And they made it pretty clear that they would strike here, Kherson, key to control of the south.
Like, how big and powerful Russia is, you'd think someone as small as Ukraine, even though Ukraine is a pretty large country, but you know what I mean, someone compared to Russia, like you thought Russia would just sweep them, like they'll be screwed. But this is a pretty
Moved
impressive.
many of his troops into position near the city and used their most advanced artillery to hit the Russians for weeks. They were forcing the undermanned Russian army to make a choice.
They had to pick somewhere to send forces, and they picked Kherson.
When the Russians moved troops to Kherson, they left the northeast vulnerable, since it was mostly guarded by those inexperienced
Oh, they're about to
soldiers.
do a smart attack.
So when Ukraine did start their attack in early September, they didn't hit much resistance there.
Oh, I thought it was going to do like a larger attack on the city where they, you know, they moved troops.
Almost as soon as Ukraine's soldiers began the attack, the Russian forces began to flee. These are piles of weapons and ammunition left behind by Russian troops near Kharkiv. They also left trucks, tanks, and artillery behind.
Mad.
And this is a Russian tank crew frantically fleeing before crashing into a tree.
The Russians were
What
running
the
away,
fuck?
withdrawing faster than the Ukrainians were keeping up with them.
While the Russians retreated, Ukraine took over all this territory, which included some important towns. Izium was a Russian supply dump, and Kupiansk was a crucial railway hub, useful for moving troops and supplies. They've also freed thousands of Ukrainian civilians that have been trapped under Russian occupation for months.
I
Wow.
think this was a very well done, opportunistic attack that went just incredibly well.
Good
for the
fucking
Ukrainian
shit.
military.
Meanwhile, Ukraine is still attacking Kherson and making some progress. But the attack in Kharkiv has begun a third phase in the war, where Ukraine this time has the momentum.
There's a long
Bro, isn't now Putin like saying on the news that he wants to now end it as soon as possible? No shit. No shit. I don't know if that's right or wrong because you know what the fucking media is like. But if it is true, then no shit, bro. Should I tell you why? Because Ukraine is going to get the momentum. And then what if Ukraine decides, you know what? Fuck Russia. And they start fucking... They definitely won't. They probably won't. But what if they start just invading fucking Russia, bro?
road ahead. The Russians are going to try and replace these further catastrophic losses with likely diminishing returns. But I am confident in saying that the shoe is more on the other foot now, with Ukrainian forces having the initiative of choosing where the next major battle of the war will occur. And they have clearly
Damn.
demonstrated that they can and fully intend to take this war into 2023 and drive
Damn.
out the occupying Russian forces.
Honestly, like when this all started, a lot of people didn't expect that this will happen. Well, a lot of people didn't expect this in the first place. When this started, you was like, "Thought Ukraine are like, you know, it's Russia, bro. Like you kind of screwed. No one else is gonna really get involved because Russia's gonna just threat them with nukes and stuff. They don't want to escalate it. It's like it's really, really, really impressive and really, really fucking cool that Ukraine, you know, they're actually doing well and they're turning the tide and starting to look better for them. So yeah, really good for Ukraine right here. But really good video from Vok. Enjoy that one. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure you leave a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.